Hello, this is Pixie, doing another video. I'm trying to find out what the essence of the universe is, which is quite thought-provoking. There's certain truths there. There probably is at least 3 forces that are likely that would go into certain spectrums, divide up even further. So you've got light, or it could be the energy, a certain energy, but the other one's an energy as well. There's chaos, which causes disruption, and by that it creates measures and forms and all sorts of things, because it proposes something, a boundary, a fixed parameter, a physics. It's potentially the satanic force within, or Luciferian in one way, but it's not really of the kind of biblical kind. It's kind of, well, I guess it is the metaphor for, should be right, for the construct of the universe. Is it different forces proposing against each other? I mean, even for the yin and yang, which is probably a better model to sort of grasp the mind. There's a third force in there. There's a force that's wanting them to turn, that's causing the turning force within it. And I propose it's probably gravity. What people think of gravity is a consciousness. It also creates limitations, but in a sense of order. So so chaos can be disruptive, causes change and transition, while the kind of light creates the formulation, structure, order. Not necessarily balance, because it can be destructive as well. So really, what is destructive, like water, isn't it? It's like an element. Elements, I guess, we're looking at. We're looking at universal elements, and consciousness isn't really limited. Look at hailstones. It's not limited, and if everything has consciousness in it, to a lesser or greater level, then it's also, everything is connected to you, but it's also able to work outside of you without limitations put in place. Because sometimes the focus has been on, the bright light on, has been on disproving things exist, or things are the manifestation. They're kind of the byproduct of something else. Well, actually, there's something else could be the byproduct of them. It's a bit more complicated. And for a form to exist, it generates a certain amount of chaos. It's a bit like me, as I move around, I'm disrupting the environment around me. So there's a field of chaos generated by me. My behaviour generates chaos. So if we look at the chaos god, there's things I do that will cause destruction. This is why we have issues. We have some issues with dealing. You just put your indicator on. With issues dealing with life and death stuff. We think, well, if everything's meant to be good, how come terrible things happen in this universe and all these sorts of things? Because chaos requires it. That's the problem. There's a price, and the price is a conscious one. If you do something you feel bad about it, it's the conscious price, but the action might have been chaos, driven by light. It's properly, there we go. It's like, whoa, this is like big. There's a triality with them. They're all interconnected. Therefore, the upper echelons, they've got to work together. Doesn't matter if one, you want to perceive one as good as one as bad, and maybe one as necessary. You know, I can't live if I don't eat. and what I eat causes chaos, and people won't measure that chaos as good or as evil, but as necessarily things I've got to do at a conscious level, well, won't exist. Because I'm a manifestation, but when I die I turn around and feed something else. So it's so my life and death isn't really a problem. It's a problem for me, but it's not a problem for this universe, because I just go into a cycle of feeding something else. I'm just a mineral sack and with vitamins and energy. As the consciousness broken down into my cellular level, so they're packages of consciousness, they're packages of light, they're data. If you want to see consciousness as a data stream, so if you've got data, you've got chaos that disrupts it. It's the only way you can delete data. Otherwise, if you put light on top of light, you just get more dense light forms, and it's like filling a room with all your rubbish. After a while, it just becomes such a strong manifestation that you can't make anything out. This may be why the primordial structure of the universe had to separate itself out to create some order, and these different forces, and to regulate forces, but they're interwoven. So the levels of the forces were decided. And there's also sort of things I saw on the internet, and I think it's the perception, because my universe is in the bandwidth. So things that fit in their bandwidth I can make sense of. Things outside the bandwidth I can't. I can theorise on it. An interesting word about theory is the theo, is God. So if someone talks about theories of science and says he doesn't believe in God, then he can't propose a theory, because a theory is a kind of mind, and what he's against is religion. I don't have a religious outlook, but as in terms of science, a God could exist as a form of consciousness, a collective consciousness. It's like saying, well, I can access the internet, but I don't believe in data transfer via computer, but I do believe the internet exists. You kind of pick and choose in what you want to believe in. You know, it's like saying I believe in religion, but I don't believe in God, or some reverse, which you could do depending on the religion. So there's there's that mix, but understanding that there's separating. Maybe it's a three-headed dragon. So you've got one of consciousness, and I don't know if that would be it. You've got one of light, and you've got one of chaos. And chaos just generates disruption, frequency will change. So that's really what it is. It's an element of change, but then it probably goes into this model of astro theology, and fixed, was it tangible and immutable? So fixed could be light, mutable would be the chaos, and tangible would be this kind of mid-range of data. But at some level they all cross over. Light contains data, but then it follows it around. It's not it's everywhere. It's not limited. It's just kind of these different frequencies and waves and streams of consciousness. If I could see reality in its full form, I would probably see a vibrating ball of white light or something. It could be beyond anything I could measure, and then I'd hear everything going on at once in the world, and it would just be it'd just blow me apart. It'd just be too much to handle. So it's got to be put into a bandwidth. So when things drop out in the bandwidth and go into a different bandwidth, only things in that spectrum would pick it up. And that's why sometimes we see things like ghosts and other things, because other things do exist outside of that, and consciousness isn't limited. If it's an energy, it's not limited, and it can't really be destroyed. It could be like transmuted into something else. It's either fixed at some level, like it won't change, or it return back to its natural state, like elements. You know, you can probably blow an element apart, but you'll just end up coming back with the same element eventually. At some point in time, it just return into its form. And the fixed is like what do I say? Tangible. So you're able to change. So if we talk about water, we can change it to ice and then turn back into water, or we can turn it to steam. It's like a hinge. You can move it in certain directions. But if I want to split the molecules or the atomic structure apart, the frequency is basically. So if I turn it back into hydrogen and oxygen, at some point the hydrogen and oxygen are probably recombined and turned back into water. All you've done is I will have succeeded to turn it to a gas. I've just transmuted it between elements. And if I was able to blow it up completely, it may just turn up somewhere else in the universe. And there's interesting things in videos like does quantum physics exist? It has to exist in order to sustain the science that already exists, because it kind of underlines it maybe at some level, and it could end up causing it to, well, basically you can switch it on its head. You know, if quantum physics becomes physics, then what does physics become? So it's that's the kind of thing. Same way if I can evolve, if through a process of elimination, you know, I could take the science. What is science? Well, I'd assume science is a form of maths and theory and sensory measurements. So I can show someone like steam. I can say, look, here's steam. I created it using heat applied to the water. And there may be other ways to increase, like a microwave or something, I don't know. But it all involves a temperature. I can demonstrate that at certain levels. And then I can measure it to say that, so the conclusion is at a certain temperature it will turn to steam. But you need all these models in place for it to work. But you could do a process of elimination and extrapolation and transmutation of a religion to find what is the core truth. Does God exist? Go on, that's fine. Okay. And I mean, you know, at your kind of lowest conclusion that something exists there, and if we are connected to this thing, we can influence it as well. And are we just like, what are we? Are we fixed? Are we transmutable? Are we chaos? Do we, you know, I do represent all of these things. I mean, how many universal elements are there that exist within the inner dimensions of being? Because I know magnetism and electricity, and somebody said that it's a hybrid. So it's like static and vibration. It's something that wants to be solid, but it's forced to transmute, I guess, into a wave. So it exists in more than one form. It's probably really just an element. Electricity is an element. But then it comes back to the universal model. It's an element that's interwoven into everything. Everything's light. If it has energy, otherwise it has chaos. Or it's data, and where does that exist? Outside of that dimension. An undercurrent that exists in a different dimension, maybe. Would you separate just thinking of any reality, would you separate the data part of it from the hard drive? So if something went wrong, you could have a backup system, which would make sense. Just think how intelligence works. Anyway, this is Peter signing off in this video, and speak to you soon. Bye.